Right. Why don't we go ahead and get started? Thank you everyone for joining. This meeting is scheduled to go until around 7:30 tonight. You can see from the agenda that we have up, we were going to do a little bit of introductions, although that might have to be a little bit rolling as people come in and out. Then we're going to do a short presentation on some air testing that North Brooklyn Neighbors did in conjunction with partners at NYU. You may have seen a little bit about a community survey that we're also spearheading with those same partners at NYU. And then Medicine Realty is going to do a presentation, and then we will have question and answer just like usual. As usual, you can always put questions in the chat. I think generally it's also good to just do the raise hand function. But if you don't want to speak, I can try to monitor the chat and make sure that questions that are put there are answered. So I know we have a number of elected officials and their staff that we're planning to join tonight. I also know that a couple of them will be a little bit late. So I wasn't sure if anyone wanted to say anything up front or if we should just wait to recognize them when they get in. I know.
Hey, I'll say
Oh,
something.
awesome. Thanks, Emily.
Hi, everyone. I'm Assemblymember Emily Gallagher. I'm really grateful to be at another one of these meetings and really looking forward to seeing the updates. And I want to thank everyone for being so collaborative. And, it looks like an incredible process has been made at the site, which I've walked by a couple of times. So really interested to hear what's happening. And thanks to North Brooklyn Neighbors and the developers and all of you constituents who have really put so much time and effort into making this better for all of us. So thanks.
Thank you, Assembly Member. Is there anyone else who wanted to speak up front? Okay, we will
I could
go.
say hi from
Oh,
Congresswoman Nydia
excellent.
Velasquez's office, Dan Wiley. I'll be listening in and running over to a Long Island City waterfront planning meeting at the same time.
Yes, a lot going on. Thanks, Dan. Anyone else?
Hi, all. Kelly McCabe from Councilmember Ressler's office on. He should be on later, but just wanted to say hello, and I'm excited to see how the pilot has been going on site.
Great, thanks, Kelly. If there's anyone else?
Yep. Hi, I'm Peyton Schulteis from Senator Gonzalez's office. Unfortunately, the senator isn't able to make it tonight, but I'm here on behalf of the office. So thank you.
Thank you, Peyton. Okay, then I think we'll get going. I'm going to hand it over to one of NBN's fellows, who is with NYU, who helped in conjunction with several community members, some of which are here tonight, to do some air testing. We wanted to do some testing for some of the compounds that we've heard are problematic and just a short report back. Obviously, we've had quite a bit of air testing going on, but it's always good to do a little bit from a, oh, I'm in the dark, from a local nonprofit. So, you don't have the same interests. So it's good to know and be able to share with what we found. So Antonio, I'm gonna hand it over to you. I know you have a slide deck to pull up and let you take it from here.
All right. Thank you, Leo. It's good to see some familiar faces here. My name is Antonio. I'm a fourth-year PhD student at NYU. I'm here with my lab mate, Nicole, and we're representing some of the work that we do with North Brooklyn Neighbors and NYU. And so this is work surrounding the Superfund site and the community. And so we are looking at the outdoor air quality sampling results that we have been doing. in Community Board 1. And so we're zeroing in on the NuHart Superfund site. We've done several testing rounds throughout the past couple of years in North Brooklyn, mainly where community members have identified places that either of concern, where there's visible construction dust, et cetera, or smells. And so we have done a lot with work with North Brooklyn neighbors in order to identify these different areas. So happy to be here tonight and happy to talk to you all. And so in summary, why we have this grant together with NBN and looking at different locations and under our mentors, Dr. Judith Zelikoff and Dr. George Thurston, who do a lot of work in the community as well. And if you have angry questions, I can direct you to them as well. But otherwise, yeah, happy to be here.
Antonio, I'm just gonna interrupt you for 1 second. I think Council Member Ressler is on, so I just want to give him a chance to speak.
No problem.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for the chance to say hello. I'm eager to hear from Madison Realty in DC about the NAPL and the cleanup of the site. So hopefully we'll get to that promptly. I'm just appreciative of everybody's ongoing efforts to work together to get this site cleaned up after so many years of toxic pollution. So here, my team and I are here to help in any way that we can. If folks have any questions or concerns, please let us know. And looking forward to getting to the meat and potatoes of this promptly. I'll kick it back to y'all.
Great, thanks. Go ahead, Antonio.
All right, no problem. Thank you so much. So, and with all of this information, we're doing independent testing with North Brooklyn neighbors, looking at the sites of concern. And so what did we go out and test? Particulate matter and VOCs mainly. So particulate matter, you all probably remember from the wildfires last summer, the hazy skies. So those are caused by particles, and they're very, very small, finer than a grain of hair, finer than a grain of sand, than a strand of hair. Actually particles that you can't actually see unless their concentrations are super high. And so those are particles that can penetrate deep into your lung, and so you're breathing them, you carry heavy metals on them. And that's why we're concerned. Otherwise, we're testing volatile organics, and usually these are from industrial processes, contaminated soils. All of you are familiar with the Meeker Avenue plume, I suppose. And so with the vapor intrusion and all that going on, we thought it'd be a good idea to test. And these are usually associated with the Superfund sites. So briefly, how we did it, we deployed sampling equipment for PM for an 8-hour shift to get a representative sample of what is occurring near the NuHart Superfund site. And so the filters were measured and collected and looked at, analyzed for their metal content. And so here are the results from that. And any questions, please feel free to ask at the end. I know I'm blowing through this, so I'm giving the others the opportunity to present their information. But what we found for the sampling location at NuHart was that the 8-hour average is 9.17 micrograms per cubic meter. Now, what that average means is EPA has set a limit annually for 9 micrograms per cubic meter, or a 24-hour average for 35 micrograms per cubic meter. And based on this one sampling, if this average still stands for the rest for NuHart Superfund site, it is well within range of what is normally occurring or what EPA sets its limits at for this particular area. And we compared them to the 24-hour and 8-hour averages using the DOH monitors that are measuring all across the city. And so even though our site at NuHart was slightly higher than the averages during those times, we were still well within limits. And looking at the PM elemental composition for the total elements, we see a very normal breakdown of sulfur and chlorine and iron and calcium. So all of this tells me as is kind of like a fingerprint of what is in the air. And so calcium and iron can be from different construction, different depositions. Same with silicon, which is highlighted in orange, and then sulfur is from industry as well, combustion of fuels. And so this is pretty average for what we're seeing. And to give you a better idea of the breakdown itself, these measure elements, the metals make up a small fraction of the PM. As you see, all of the rest of the PM is in red. The measured elements are in blue. And so this small fraction of the metals, there's not a huge amount in this. And that's because there's a lot of other organic material, a lot of carbon, a lot of pollen, a lot of things coming from natural sources that are contributing to the PM 2.5. Secondly, we tested VOCs for the same amount of time for 8 hours. And so we deployed these. And so for those results, we looked at different VOCs of concern that might be associated with the area. And so these are results from DuPont Street. And so this is 1,3-butadiene, and looking at benzene and carbon tetrachloride. And so these results are slightly above the annual concentration guidelines. So this might be a little cause for concern. Generally, these are coming from, well, it's difficult to say, unfortunately. So they usually are coming from industry or traffic-related pollutants as well. And so things to look out for, and in future rounds of testing, we will continue to investigate. And here's the breakdown as well for DuPont Street. And so some of the results are slightly elevated. They're on the right-hand side. Many of them, though, these are all below the concentration guidelines and limits. So, and then lastly, at NuHart, the VOCs at concern were actually not detected for NuHart. I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah. And to go over this again, looking at the potential health effects of the VOC exposure, looking at the VOCs of interest that we found at DuPont Street that were above the annual concentration guidelines, the 1,3-butadiene, the benzene, the carbon tetrachloride. So they can cause acute health effects for tissue injury, dizziness, damage to kidneys as well, and then long-term health effects leading to cancer and different cardiovascular diseases. So altogether, these results mean that there's generally no cause for concern. What we're seeing in these levels from our independent testing is on par with what is average in the area of New York, average in for below the standards. And so any additional information or resources, please feel free to click on the QR codes or look at them for more details about the pollutants. And go ahead and please ask your questions. And I thank you for listening. But I'm going to go ahead and pass the baton off to Nicole, another one of my lab mates, looking at the NuHart Community Health Survey.
Thanks, Antonio. I'm just going to do a short introduction. So just to summarize, some of the pollutants that, are some of the reasons that this was, turned into a Superfund site, we didn't detect. And for example, the carbon tetrachloride and the benzene, we've kind of found all over Greenpoint and Williamsburg when we've done testing. So just wanted to report back on that. And then this is this project that Nicole is going to present on briefly grew out of these meetings, actually. Several times we've heard from community members about health effects that people are concerned may have come from exposure in this area. So because there hasn't been the kind of study that residents and community members have said that they would like to see, we asked NYU, our partners at NYU, if anyone would be interested in potentially investigating this. And Nicole, who's going to speak for just a few minutes on this survey, stepped up to the task. And but just wanted to let you know that this kind of grew directly out of the concerns that we've heard at this meeting. So Nicole, take it away.
Thank you, Lel. Thank you, Antonio. Hi, everybody. Many of you may have seen me before, so hello again, if that's the case. As Lil said, I am working at NYU with my mentor, Dr. Judith Zelikoff, who is a community health pro. And I might see if she is on later on just to say hello and introduce herself in case there are any particular questions that anybody has that may be better suited for her to answer. So as Leo said, this NuHart survey is something that grew out of community concerns, community requests that have been long-standing and that we wanted to be responsive to. And this is something that was in the kind of ongoing process for several months. So the last time we had a NuHart specific meeting, it was in the works. But as of about 5 weeks ago, the survey has been opened for access. You may have seen communications about this from North Brooklyn neighbors or posters around town, etc. So just to provide a little bit more context on the survey itself for those of you who may be a little less familiar or want a reminder, this is something that we worked with community members on, many of whom are here on the call as well today. And it is asking questions that pertain to health status and also people's general experiences living in the area while the site was an ongoing kind of Superfund site and everything was undergoing cleanup. So these are the kinds of things you will be asked about on the survey. The average time it takes for someone to complete it is about 17 minutes. So not too bad, but hopefully something that if you do respond to is going to really help to kind of collect the data for the community. Importantly, all of this information will be reported back to the community at an aggregate level. So all of the data is completely anonymous. I am the only person who looks at any of it, but it will be reported at high level back to the community next year. And that's something that is really kind of fundamental. We want to make sure we're communicating that info to all of you. And the survey, as I say, has been open since the middle of September, and it will be closing at Thanksgiving. So we have a little while, but if you have not yet completed it, please do. You can scan the QR code on the screen or go to the link. It's just a red cap link / NuHart survey. And if you have connections in the area, neighbors who used to live there, family members who used to live in the area and have moved away, people who work full-time in the area, really the only kind of requirement is that you are over 18 and you have lived or previously lived in the area for at least 2 years, and that you live within the area that you can see defined by the red line on the screen. So I will also note we have had really great response from the community so far, and we would love to keep that momentum going. And if you are somebody who you've seen this survey and you've maybe clicked on it, but didn't get around to being able to complete it, I encourage you to go ahead and look at it again, because there are a number of people who I saw opened the survey but didn't get to finish it. And clearly you're interested, but we would like to be able to record your actual responses. So that would be great. Please reach out to me if you have any questions. I can share my email, which in the chat as well. Yeah, and I want to just quickly pass off to Laura Hoffman, who is one of the community members who has been instrumental in spreading the word about the survey, to talk briefly about her kind of experience with it and why she thinks it matters. Yeah, Laura?
Right. Thank you. I'm really grateful that NYU is doing this study because it's something that I've been very interested and worried about for many years. Um, Preferably, we would have had this done maybe 20, 25 years ago, but there's still a lot of people that that are around alive that are filling out these surveys. Um, I know I've been outreaching to people like on the Greenpoint Facebook groups and emailing like one-on-one to people to ask them to fill it out. So hopefully you've gotten a lot of hits through that. I'd be curious on how many were filled out to date.
Sorry, yes, I can share that with you. Yeah, so far we have 135 people who have completed the survey, which is amazing, and largely thanks to people's efforts at getting their friends, family, neighbors to complete it. But the more people we have completed, the more representative it's going to be. So yeah.
A couple of people also had questions. Once they completed the survey, they remembered that they didn't add something. Is there a way for them to update it?
Yeah, unfortunately, you can't go back to the survey. That's a great question. You can't go back to it, but if they want to upload a new response, they can and submit it, but they would have to just fill it out again because I hand comb through everything to get rid of duplicates. So I can get rid of duplicates.
Okay.
Great. Thank you so much, Laura, for sharing your perspective. And I don't believe that Dr. Zelikoff is on. If I'm wrong, please interrupt me. So that is going to complete this portion, and we can move on to our standard portion of the meeting. Thank you very much, Nicole and Antonio. Antonio, you can stop sharing. And I believe Shalom is going to be presenting from Madison Realty. So please go ahead. Thanks.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. It's Shalom Silverman on behalf of Madison. I'm joined by my colleague Victoria Della Sala from Madison as well. And let me just try and share my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah, and before we get started, I just want to say thank you, obviously, to Lael and the North Brooklyn Neighbors team and Council Member Resser's office, Assembly Member Gallagher's office, State Senator Gonzalez's office, and Congresswoman Velasquez's office, as well as DEC, OER, and DOH, who have all been heavily involved in this long journey, and we're very excited that we're coming to the completion of this project. So this presentation is just going to give you a little bit of what's going on at the site now and what you guys can expect in the coming months. So hold on. So on the right-hand side, this is 75 DuPont. 75 DuPont was the brownfield portion that we received our brownfield certificate of completion in December of 2023. We actually received TCO for the building on October 9th. There have been tenants already started to move in. And we also have a parking garage that the entrance is on Clay Street that is now open for monthly parkers and also people to park during the day. So that project is officially complete, and thank you to everyone who was a part of that. On the left-hand side, we have 65 DuPont. So the on-site remediation was completed earlier this year, in the beginning of the year. We topped out our superstructure in July 24. We're anticipating occupancy and TCO for this building in Q3 of 2025. And currently ongoing, which we'll talk about further in this presentation, we're implementing the systems for the offsite remediation, which is a requirement as part of the ROD and the Superfund. The first component of the offsite remediation is offsite El Napo recovery. So the offsite El Napo recovery is an active recovery system which will be installed on the northeast corner of DuPont and Franklin. The system, as you can see here, kind of in this picture, will be a network of pumps and pipes that will be connected to a tank that is located in the cellar of 65 DuPont. So El Napo will be pumped out of those wells located on that corner and deposited into that tank. And the tank will be tied to removal of the product from the tank will occur through a steel tube inserted into the tank, and a vacuum truck will come. I believe it will be likely once a quarter to extract product from this tank. So this system is currently being installed. As you can see here, we started with phase 1, phase 2, and are continuing to phase 5. This system started at the end of September, and we're anticipating to have it complete and commissioned on November 8th. So that will be the end of next week. Separate from those recovery wells that are going to be tied to that active system, there are other recovery wells that we're going to be removing product from. The way to remove that product is we'll be doing a vacuum truck event, likely once a quarter. And this was actually demonstrated to some of the elected officials back in August. And it will be once a quarter. We'll be doing it in the middle of the day from 10 a.m. to 2 so that it won't be disturbing any, morning commute or afternoon commute. And it will only be about 10 to 20 minutes per each well. And the, nuisance to the community will be minimized as much as possible. The other component of the offsite remediation is the soil vapor extraction, which will be a system of wells on the Clay Street side. We did an updated pilot test in October. Those results are being submitted to DEC with the final design in November. So as soon as we have more information about that system, we will be able to provide. Again, we have made it a point to communicate as much as we can to the community. I know many of you are probably on our weekly community updates. We'll be continuing to provide them. And over here on the bottom, we have some of our contact information that whoever has any questions about the site or questions about construction, please feel free to reach out to us and we'll be as responsive as we can. And we're here, we're excited that we were able to complete 75 DuPont and we're completing 65 DuPont next year. And we're excited to be at the finish line of the total remediation of the NuHart site. So I can leave this QR code up for a few minutes if anyone wants. You can scan this and it'll lead you to be able to sign up for our weekly presentation. And yeah, and that's our presentation. So thank you.
I'm guessing it will probably be helpful to hear from DEC before we ask specific questions, because I think there'll probably be some overlap in terms of explanations. So why don't we go over to Jane, and then we can ask questions of DEC and Shalom and MRC at the same time. So
Okay.
go ahead, Jane.
Yeah, give me a second. I will share my screen. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, terrific. All right. Hi, everybody. I am really excited that we are coming close to the finish of seeing this site remediated. I know I've seen a lot of you guys over the years on a lot of different calls and a lot of updates. But I'm really, really excited that we're close to the finish line here. This has been a long slog for everyone, and we're really really happy to see this site getting cleaned up. So with that said, I'm just going to go through a couple of slides. Some of the things that Shalom covered on his presentation will also be repeated here, but we'll try to minimize that as much as possible. So again, this presentation is specific to the Superfund site. We're not talking about the Brownfield Cleanup Program site that was already completed previously. So for the Superfund site, it's broken up into two different operable units. There's an on-site component and an off-site component. Operable Unit 1, OU1, the remedial action has been completed, as Shalom mentioned, and we are now working on Operable Unit 2, which is the remaining contamination that extends off-site. DEC approved the automated recovery system in September, and that system installation is ongoing, as Shalom mentioned. There is the SVE pilot test, and there is also the passive recovery system design that is forthcoming. I'll go into a little bit more detail on the following slides. So again, this is a similar picture that Shalom showed you. The automated recovery wells are within this this red area here. Those wells are all piped directly into the building through pumps. They will pump into that tank. The wells are spaced at about 10 feet on center. These wells will contain skimmer pumps that are connected to the tank, so they will pump automatically, pump any product that comes into the well into that tank, and then from the tank it will be vacuumed out and sent off for offsite disposal. There are 18 wells, as I said, about 10 feet on center all along here. These are just some photos showing the crews installing the wells and the piping. They have, all the piping had to be put underground. You can see it's all manifolded together and then goes into the building. So everything is below grade. Nobody can touch it, see it, smell it. It's all contained below grade, below the sidewalk. Okay, so back in August, we invited the elected officials and North Brooklyn neighbors, and I believe, I think, Nicole, you were there as well, I think. We did a sort of a demonstration of what it's going to look like and sound like to have these Vector trucks come out and empty out some of the offsite wells that are on the far side of the street. So we did that August 14th. We took noise readings right next to the truck. Those noise readings did not exceed 83 decibels. And then we took noise readings diagonally across the street standing by the park. Those noise readings were in the range of 70 to 75 decibels, which is equivalent to urban traffic noise levels. So the photograph on the top shows what the Vector truck looks like. This on the bottom is essentially what the pipe that's connected to those wells and then connected to the Vector truck, and it just basically, it's like a giant straw and it just sucks the product out of the wells. Now these wells are because they're located across the street, really typically it's this well here and a couple of these wells over here. We could not run automated piping across and under the street. So that's why these wells that are sort of in these red boxes here are going to be recovered using these Vector trucks. And then in between the Vector truck events, we will put this absorbent material down inside the well that will also collect the product. So we're going to be sort of continuously collecting product. And then the third component of the offsite is the soil vapor extraction system. There was an initial test performed in April, but the test was inconclusive because they were not able to get sufficient vacuum. There was a second pilot test that was done using a modified design that was performed, as Shalom mentioned, in October. And Haley Aldridge is working on the, synthesizing those results and coming up with a permanent system design that's expected to be submitted to us, to DEC, for review and approval in November. And on the right, this is just sort of what the pilot test looked like. And again, the pilot test, the SVE system would be up along this northern side of the property. Some of you may recall that we had some trichloroethylene, TCE, in this area of the site that has been excavated out. The source has been excavated out. This is sort of a belt and suspenders to make sure that if there is any residual vapor still present on the site, it will not migrate off site. And that's it for my presentation, Lael. So if you want to open it up for questions, do you want me to keep the presentation up, or?
Sure, it might be helpful to refer to a map.
Okay.
Yeah, if you have a question, feel free to unmute yourself, or if there's a lot of questions, we can start raising hands. I guess I'll ask a question while we're waiting for others. I guess, Shalom, you had said something about something was commissioned and it would be completed by the end of next week. I wasn't quite clear as to what that meant.
So that's the active recovery system, right? So it's yeah. So if you see on Jane's presentation, it's taken us a little bit over a month to install this system. And once it's installed, right, we wire it up and we can turn it on.
And so what does commissioned mean? Like just that it's starting to work?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see Steve, go ahead.
Thanks, Lael. And thank you, Shalom and Jane, for the presentations. Yeah, I have a lot of questions, but I'm just going to limit it, obviously, and maybe I'll write you guys with some of the ones that I want to ask right now. But I have two that I feel are very pertinent. Basically, the manual extraction is going to happen next to Greenpoint Playground and across from the site on DuPont Street. How are you dealing with potential migration issues in terms of when, like with the main site, you built the barriers and you did that, in front of the potential future school site. So I was wondering, that would be question number one, and then I have another question.
You mean migration of
groundwater, yeah, contaminated groundwater.
So the automated system here, Steve, the whole, what this is designed to do is to sort of induce a if you look at it, so like if you look at the water table and it's like this, and if you're pumping out one side of it, it's going to try to it's going to lower it, and the idea is to try to induce any of the product that's underneath the street here to migrate towards those active recovery wells. The wells that are out over here really don't have that much product in them anymore. And that's why we didn't want to do a really aggressive recovery over here, because it would negate the induction component of the active system that's on the east side of the street. But these will continue to be monitored, until all the product is gone. So we started monitoring these wells in 2011. So in 13 years, we have not seen the shape of the plume change. What we have seen is that since the removal of this main source area, the actual amount of product that's in these offsite wells has actually gone down. And throughout the excavation, for much of the period of time that there was excavation going on here, they were also doing product recovery in these wells. This is just a permanent automated system to try to not have to have somebody out there with a vac truck every day. Does that answer that part of your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's basically, I guess a goal or intention is, you get the, I guess using the degradation of the land to, or the groundwater to kind of move towards the, on site, but then the off-site wells, a minimal product. But it also triggered my follow-up question is, what is the goal here in terms of levels of contamination? You mentioned removing all of the contaminated product, but is that really what you're going after? Is basically a zero type of?
Well, I mean, our goal is always pre-release conditions. Yes.
Yeah.
Is that a practical goal given that we can't put in, look, we've got recovery wells, like I said, on 10-foot centers all along here. I can't put them into the street because of the utilities. So we talked about this when we developed the record of decision in 2015, 2016, that it's not feasible to dig up the road and remove all the phthalates that are under the road down to 25 feet below grade. So what we're doing is, our goal is to keep pumping these wells, keep recovering until we don't recover anymore. The phthalates themselves are not really dissolving. We're not seeing it. This is not like if you have gasoline that spills in the groundwater, the gasoline, the components of the gasoline, the benzene, the toluene, the ethyl benzene, the xylene, they tend to dissolve out, and they will create a dissolved plume of contaminated groundwater. We're not really seeing a plume of contaminated groundwater here. We're seeing a plume of separate phase phthalate. And our goal is to remove as much of that as we can feasibly, given the constraints we have out here.
Okay. Thank you.
Steve, let's go to Daphne, and then we'll do a couple questions from the chat.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I don't have a lot of questions about all that because we've been talking about it for so long. I understand that it's going in the other direction away from my house, if it was even before, right? So it's not like there's phthalates on DuPont on the other side of the street.
Where are you talking about? Where's your house? Over here?
You do have two wells on the corner on the other side of the street.
And there is some product measured in those wells that's been there since 2011. Yes.
Oh, okay. So did it migrate, or was it always?
No, it's always been in those wells since we put them in, but it hasn't. Okay. The thickness of it has generally gone down. And again, Daphne, if you recall, we had wells that were outside of this, and we've never seen it migrate past where these wells are.
So further up DuPont where we
up the street. No, we don't have anything down here. We have these. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, but my question is about, and thank you for measuring the volume, because that's one of the things we've been dealing with, is sometimes 90 decibels, 100 decibels right outside my house from some kind of construction. I'm a sound person, and that's what I'm doing. So I measure it. Has anybody measured? Tell me more about the compressors that are going in for these wells. Where are they going to be, and how loud are they?
Well, I can kick that over to Scott Underhill, but the compressors and all the pumps will be housed inside the basement of this building. So you should not hear anything outside. You can walk by here. You might hear a humming right next to it, but you're not going to hear the
street. Yeah.
It's not going to be on the street. All of the pumps, everything is housed inside the building.
Okay. That's all the questions I have, but if you have anything else to say about it, I'm all ears. I'd love to know, as much as I can about that.
Scott, do you have any details on the size of the pumps and where they're going to be and what their sound rating is?
Yeah, the compressors will be installed inside the basement of the building, and you will not hear them. They're very small. It's a small vacuum compressor.
Oh,
So
okay.
it won't be loud at all.
I think I
you'll
must have,
hear it.
yeah. Okay, but about the Vactor, I think I remember going outside when the Vactors were there.
The vac trucks, so the idea would be, right, the outside of the automated recovery wells. Again, the automated recovery wells, all of those pumps and vacuums would be housed inside the building.
Okay.
These wells that are outside of the automated, they'll still be gauged monthly. And depending on how much product is in those wells, if there's enough to recover using a Vactor truck once a quarter, typically, the Vactor truck would come out, hook up to each well. It'd probably be about 10 to 20 minutes on each well. And if they do, 5 or 6 of them, so that we were talking about once a quarter for a couple of hours, the Vactor truck would be running.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, so to go to a couple questions in the chat, what does disposal mean specifically for the offsite material pumped out? So could you talk a little bit about the disposal?
Sure. So all of this material, once it's recovered either in the Vactor truck or in the tank that's in the basement, it will all have to go to a licensed facility for either it'll probably be destruction. I'm not sure. Scott, if you have you identified where this will go? Will it go to a thermal treatment facility or something else?
I think it's likely going to go to Cycle Chem, which they treat it on site.
Okay, so it's going to a licensed facility that will treat it and dispose of it in accordance with whatever their permits require.
And that would be via truck. And how, I guess, is that right?
Well, yes, the Vactor truck would come and pump out this tank here, would pump out the wells, and then it goes under its permit. It's a permitted truck, right? It's under a Part 364 DEC permit for hazardous waste disposal. It would go to whatever facility it's licensed to take it to. Cycle Chem. Cycle Chem has their process, and they are a licensed facility, and they would go through their process to treat it and destroy it.
And I know you said that the Vactor trucks would be coming quarterly to empty the wells. Is that also when they would be emptying the ones that are the tanks, or would that be more frequent?
Well, we've got to see what the recovery rate is. Once they, I don't want to use the word, I don't know what the word he used, but once they get the system operating, they'll turn it on and they'll run it and they'll start seeing, are we recovering 50 gallons a day? Are we recovering 10 gallons a day? How long is it going to take for them to fill up this 1,000-gallon tank? And so there's a meter on the tank, and they'll be able to see how fast is it recovering. So we don't know at this point, I don't think, how frequently that tank would have to be emptied out. And likely over time, you sort of reach an asymptotic level. They're going to be recovering probably more product initially, a little bit less, a little bit less, a little bit less as it's going on. So I don't know what the frequency will be initially, but it might be more than quarterly initially.
I guess just to follow up on that, before we move on to the next question, I guess what safety precautions are in place so that when you're kind of pumping out and it's going through, some kind of hose to the truck, that there's no spillage or opportunity for, passersby to come in contact. If you could just go over that a little bit, that would be helpful.
Well, it's kind of a grainy photograph, unfortunately, but so first of all, when the truck gets there, they would set up a perimeter around it. The public would not be able to walk through where they're doing this work. And they'll typically set up around the well, they will set up sort of secondary containment so that if there's any spillage, it would be collected by these absorbent materials. But this is something that these systems are used very frequently around the city. But they would have to make sure that the whole thing was cleaned up before each time they go.
Okay, and then another question, how often will the wells be monitored by the park after construction is completed?
Well, all of these wells will continue to be monitored. There's going to, remember, the completion of the active remediation doesn't mean the completion of the project. There's still a site management phase. So all of the wells, all of these pumps, all of these, everything, all components of this remedy have to be continued to be monitored and maintained under the site management plan. Typically, we would probably continue to do monthly gauging initially to see the impact of both the active and the passive recovery on the wells, right? It'll give us an idea. We collect data and we see, are the product levels dropping precipitously? Are they staying essentially the same, meaning that there's more product flowing into the wells? So there's going to be continued monitoring here for a long time.
Great. Steve, you want to go ahead?
Yes, thanks. The pump, is that temporary, or is that potentially something that could remain after the building is occupied and maybe involved with the residual removal of contaminated product?
This system is intended to be a permanent system until such time as they are done recovering all the product that they can recover.
Okay, and then, so then what kind of safety measures will be in place once residents occupy the building in regard to the pump and the potential vapor intrusion, et cetera?
So I don't know if you have a better picture of this, Shalom, but this room would be, it's an isolated room. Nobody can go in it. The public cannot enter the room. There is a vapor, there'd be a carbon filtration on the air to make sure that there was no air impacts, and all of this would be monitored throughout the operation.
Correct. Yeah, I don't have a better picture ready, but yeah, this is like this is a room that is in a very remote portion of the cellar that is not accessible to anyone but, you know, the staff that would need to maintain it.
Right, I was referring to that, but also just, you know, the current, you know, vapor is permeating throughout the building, I guess. How is the room or the tank installed or fabricated in a way to prevent that?
So there is the tank is vented up outside and goes up above the roof, and then there's also a carbon filtration on that vent. So it's a sealed system, Steve. So the only place that vapors could come out is through the vent line, and the vent line has carbon filtration on it.
Okay, thank you.
You want to go ahead, Defna?
Yeah, I know I asked this a long time ago, but with that room, should we have a flood, what happens? Power gets knocked out. Is there a way to prevent water from going in there if there's a flood?
I don't know whether that might be something that, I don't know, Shalom, if there's anything built into, is there any sort of flood protection for the building built in?
I mean, the tank itself and all the equipment is either sitting on a concrete pad, so it's above the floor, or it's on like the foundation wall. So it's
Yeah,
not
but we're in a flood zone.
The tank is also double walled and sealed. So it's not just like an open top tank where there would be where it'd be impacted. It's double walled and sealed, so there would be no issue. The water would go around the tank.
What about the room it's in and any electronics that are in there?
So the electronics may go out, but that means that would also knock out the recovery component, which is the pumps that are bringing product in. So what was ever in the tank would just stay at that level.
Okay, and then just the wells themselves, if water were to get into them.
So if the wells have pumps in them and they are sealed, so the water would end up going around them.
Okay, so there's no way that if there was a lot of water that it would get into the wells themselves. No. Okay, thank you.
Another question from the chat. Does staff need a special level of expertise to continue monitoring the wells post-building construction?
The staff that will be monitoring it will still be, you know, the consultants. It's not going to be building maintenance personnel doing this work.
One question I had, I know this is probably very dependent on what your tests initially find, but is there an approximate timeline that we think? Is it potentially decades? Is it more likely a couple of years? Is it, I don't know, could you shed any light on what we're expecting in terms of the length of the recovery before it moves to the monitoring phase?
I don't know if Scott, I think we had talked about this. There was some estimate of how much product there might be still down there. It's really going to depend on how effective these recovery wells are. So I think we'd probably not be able to put a pin in that yet, Lael. I will say typically site management on a Superfund site is for 30 years. Does that mean we're going to have to do active recovery for 30 years? No, it does not. But there are other, how long it's going to take, we don't know.
Does site management start once the recovery ends, or are those concurrent?
No, site management will start when all of these remedial components are, so the SVE system, the active recovery system, and the passive recovery. Once all of those have been, I don't want to say commissioned, but commissioned, once they're actually started up, operated, tested, shown that they work, the consultant prepares what's called a final engineering report and a site management plan. The final engineering report is an engineered certification. This is everything we did. We excavated all this soil. Here's where we sent it all to. We put these systems in. Here's how everything operates. Here's all the components. Here's all the details of it. The site management plan says we're taking all those components and this is how we're going to operate and maintain them in perpetuity until such time as we're done. So when the final engineering report gets approved by DEC, that's when we issue a certificate of completion, similar to the brownfield cleanup program. At the date that we approve the certificate of completion, site management officially starts.
So site management could start and the certificate of completion could have been issued when there's still phthalates that are being pumped.
Yes.
Okay. Are there other questions? Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Thanks. So when you do arrive at a successful method for the soil vapor extraction, will that essentially be recorded in a particular document, or will we be notified? Will the community be notified when that's in place, or how can we?
Well, the SVE system was a component of the record of decision, Steve, and so what we're looking at now is the remedial design.
Right.
We can certainly, when we get a copy of it, we can certainly share it with Lael. She can share it out to the community folks. There's no formal comment period on the remedial design.
Right.
I guess what would the next update, or what would be the next best time to kind of check in as a community? Seems like this is going to be something that's like ongoing for quite a while. Would it be when we know that the systems are all operational and we have a sense of how much of the LNAPL is being collected, or what?
Yeah,
What's the next step?
I think you know, if the schedule that Shalom laid out, you know, they're looking to occupy the building, you know, the third quarter of 2025. So they're getting us, you know, they've installed the active recovery system, getting that started up. They're going to get us the remedial design for the SVE system. We're going to get approval for the passive recovery. Assuming all three of those things get done over the next, you know, couple of months, and they've started up and we have some data, I would think probably, you know, January, February would be a good time to get back together and say, here's what we're seeing so far. So I think that might be a reasonable time frame. Is Shalom and James, that seem reasonable to you?
Yeah, more than reasonable.
Yep.
And is that certificate of completion required before people can move in?
I think in this case, and I'm not going to speak for OER, but my guess is they are not going to be comfortable issuing a certificate of occupancy or having a certificate of occupancy issued until there is a DEC is signed off on the certificate of completion. So yeah, we're working towards, you know, second quarter to early third quarter 2025 to have everything done, site management plan approved, final engineering report approved, and a certificate of completion issued. Similar to what we did on the brownfield side.
Okay. Daphna, do you want to chime in?
You're muted, Daphna.
It's a little off topic, but I'm just going to ask in case this is helpful, or in case somebody has an answer. In the summer, the orange barriers were full of water and garbage, and there were mosquitoes everywhere. And Jason tried to help, but I ended up just going out and buying mosquito repellent and pouring it into those because I just couldn't be bitten by mosquitoes anymore. And I thought it was actually a health problem. But the barriers are still there. They're everywhere. They're really in our way. And it's impossible for garbage collectors. So in front of my house, everyone is piling up their garbage right in front of my house because there is no other access. So I know that's not exactly on topic, but I don't know when I'm allowed to ask that. We need to address these barriers and
Yeah,
what they
Daphna,
quality of life for people on
this
the
is
street.
definitely noted, and we'll speak to the construction team right away in the morning about this.
Okay, he's been helpful, but then things will slide, and then I have,
Yeah.
you know.
I will let you know that Jason is no longer the super. He moved on to a different project, but we have another great super.
Can you
So
put
I'm
me in
happy.
touch with him because
Sure.
he's been Jason and I would text each other when there was a problem.
Yeah, I
usually
know that.
dealing with it right away.
Yeah, I will make sure that happens.
Thank you very much.
Another question from the chat, given that sheets are not being put in to prevent product from moving toward the park, has there been continuing monitoring near and in the park? If so, will that be continued?
Yes, the wells that are around the park and within the park are still monitored on a monthly basis.
Go ahead, Steve.
Thanks. Yeah, I have a very off-topic question, but I thought I'd just throw out there. School construction authorities indicated that they want to proceed with developing a school, you know, across the street. Will they have to enter into some sort of cleanup program to do that?
I believe that site has an E designation on it. Is anyone from OER on the call? I think that's an E designated site. So I think they're going through OER's program.
Yeah, this is Christopher Rooney from OER. It is they're potentially considering our voluntary cleanup program, but either way, they would be required to pretty much do the same thing through the E designation program. So the site is E designated.
Okay, thank you.
So what kind of steps would that involve? If you could just provide a little more, potentially might be.
I don't want to preempt SEA on this. My understanding is that they want to present at the community board, and that's probably why they were in contact with Steve. So December community board meeting, they plan to present. And we would encourage them as part of our voluntary cleanup program to have similar meetings like this, like DEC is having for the NuHart site. Should they go through the voluntary cleanup program, similar meetings will be organized for that site.
All right, yeah, it's been a long process. Another question from the chat is probably for Shalom, but when will signage go up for the affordable housing lottery?
We can get back to you, but 75 DuPont, will be live on Housing Connect starting November 6th.
You said November 6th?
Correct.
Right. We have some more time, so if anyone has questions, I'm just gonna leave the space for a little bit, but it seems like we're starting to wind down. All right, how many units will there be?
So there's a total of, the building is 30% affordable. So it's 59 units in 75 DuPont, and I believe it's 84 units in 65 DuPont. And the 65 DuPont lottery won't be until the beginning of next year.
Also question, parking discount for locals. We have lost all of our parking for so long.
I don't even get a discount, but if you want to email me, we can discuss.
All right. Seems like maybe we're reaching the end. Thank you everyone for joining. As always, this meeting is recorded. We'll post it to North Brooklyn Neighbors website. I usually take a few days to do a little written summary of it, and we have the video that we'll post. If Jane and Shalom, if you want to send your presentations, I can post them there as well. And then we also have contact information for all the relevant parties here that we post. So if you have questions and want to get in touch with people directly, that information is on the website. So thanks everyone for taking the time. Appreciate it. And sounds like we'll be meeting again in a few months.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.